It might be worthwhile sometimes.
Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
Hello. Welcome to the DENDAO call for July 27th. July 27th. Man, chugging along. 2023, that's the year. Got myself, Distant, or Dave. We've got Joe, or Joe Dragon. And we've got Greg, or Greg, on the call as well. So we're going to talk about some DIN stuff. We do this every week around this time. And it is just an open conversation to anybody who wants to join and talk about DIN stuff. We have a short agenda. Let me go ahead and bring that up. We have a short agenda and some good questions already in the feedback section that we'll get to. This post is over in the DENDAO layer labeled July 27th DENDAO call. And if you scroll down a little bit on that, you'll see a link to StreamYard. That's where you can join the call here. Or you can just throw a reply in the reply section. So the one thing on the agenda is that the DeFi layer 1, it isn't created yet. I need to trigger that. It's ready to go. Everything's done. It just needs to be triggered for creation. And so that'll go out. If I'm being honest, I'm probably not going to do it until tomorrow morning because I need to trigger that personally. And I just have a lot going on. So I haven't done it yet. So that'll be done. And then also the lot creation on Ethereum is part of that process too. But DeFi layer. So we got a DeFi layer. That is really important, I think. I was talking to a friend of mine just earlier today. He was ranting and raving about, as he usually does, but this time about exchanges. And there's been a lot lately happening with exchanges, from KuCoin going to KYC only to many exchanges delisting privacy coins, KuCoin included. Monero has been seeing some issues there. A lot of efforts to sort of like do the things that we all knew was going to happen from the beginning. And the whole reason that the decentralization movement was started and that cryptocurrencies are a thing is because of that. And DeFi is here to save the day. So if you are a cypherpunk, you should hang out in the DeFi layer and talk about those developments. Obviously, we've got stuff that's on Ethereum and the Ethereum clones and sidechains that are operating as decentralized exchanges. And that's great. But we don't have a lot of cross-chain interoperability. We don't have something that is like an analog to a centralized exchange with that people can easily access, that people can have any coin or token, doesn't have to be on the same network, that has low slippage, all these things that traders want. That has, like, we've got some examples and some early work on that stuff, and there's more on the horizon. So I hope the DeFi layer can sort of catalog that as it grows into something that's robust and, you know, ready. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's the layer we got, DeFi.
And it's totally a way to for people to share what they know and to, you know, to spread the word about places you can go when stuff goes down. Like, I swear to God, somebody in DeFi can make a fortune and help everybody out a lot by just restarting local cryptos. All of it's open source and just hanging out there. Like somebody should totally restart that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And hey, if you do still want to use a centralized exchange, then I'm sure that there are exceptions to the rule that we can all share too. So that's cool. Glad that lives there.
Yeah, I know there's like local Monero is a thing that exists.
Really?
Local Bitcoin has had its issues in the past, mostly to do with privacy and entrapment kind of thing.
Yeah.
So local Monero is interesting because it's the same kind of thing, except to focus on privacy so that there's not an opportunity for entrapment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Stay
cool.
safe. Don't get kidnapped. The same kind of precautions you want to take when you're buying something on Craigslist, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and if anybody still wants to find at least some of the privacy coins, I know that for one, you can get Zcash on Gemini, and it'll actually let you offboard it from the exchange to a shielded address. Like you can go straight to shielded from the exchange.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, good on Gemini for being a holdout in that regard, because there's a lot of pressure to get rid of all privacy coins.
Yep, exactly.
Which is interesting.
Try to replace them with a world coin.
Yeah. And as we saw earlier today, after World Blockchain, Lisa brought up a report that some crypto guy was found in a suitcase recently.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know who he is. I got to look more into that and see who it was. But they found somebody. Apparently, there was a report that I don't know if it was a CEO or if he was just somebody that was like a personality, had a bunch of cryptocurrency or managed it or something like that. But
he was former Florida resident. I looked into him a little bit.
Oh, you looked into him. That was quick of you.
He went from there to Spain, I believe, and then was vacationing in Argentina when this happened. So,
okay.
They're already. I think they already have one suspect in custody. He had bad blood with some bad people in the area. So likely was just a tragic crime. And heart goes out to the families.
So that wasn't necessarily related to cryptocurrency, it seems.
It may have been, as is want to be the case with a lot of some of the influencer types of crypto folks. They're not necessarily experts at managing their finance, and sometimes they borrow money from people that they shouldn't. And
I see what you're saying. Back. Yeah.
But
my point on that was
this is a tragedy nonetheless. So.
It is a tragedy, and it's the kind of thing that there's legitimate concern for, and that's all I'm saying. Like with the pressure from regulators and stuff to get people to be afraid of privacy coins. I know Oxen is going through some issues right now with finding people that want to work with them because they are a privacy coin. They're running up against stigma and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, you don't want to tell everybody you won the lottery because they might come find you. That kind of thing.
Definitely will be voting for that turn anonymity on feature in the defiler. That's for sure.
Oh, good point. Good point. So cool. So that's what'll be there either later this evening or tomorrow morning, as soon as I can manage to get over there and turn the layer on. And that brings us into community feedback. So we've got a couple of good questions. I want to skip the top one. I'll go out of order only because it's from the same person and it is old. I have not gotten around to answering it. Here. What is the status on Durox's upvote brigading? So a couple of weeks ago, Durox brought up the fact that there seemed to be some folks who were getting a lot of energy put on their posts. And the posts did not seem, in their opinion, to warrant such heavy energy investment. I'll just say that. So basically, there's some stuff that appeared to be either copy pasta or AI generated low effort posts, not necessarily spam or anything.
It looks like 30 to 40K on all.
And they're getting like 30 or 40K energy on it.
Like so the dating app equivalent of responding to somebody and saying, hey.
Maybe, yeah. So the question was, is there something going on? Is it inappropriate? Is there some cheating? Is there somebody who's like vote farming? Is there a club? that kind of thing. And it took me way too long to do it, but I did look into it because I wanted to, because it was a really good question, because we do have systems that look for that kind of stuff. And I was mostly curious if, number one, if there was anything weird going on, and two, if the existing systems were catching it. And if not, what could we do to incorporate that to upgrade the systems, that kind of thing. So what I found was gray area. There, on one hand, was some things that the existing system did catch. Without going into too much detail, some of the stuff that Den looks for automatically on its own is people who are vote brigading or teaming up to vote on each other, or are maybe like sharing their accounts. You can see some patterns that show up, like, oh, this is probably the same person, or they live in the same house or something. It seems the timing of the posts, things like that. So there are systems that look for that kind of stuff. There's also legitimate reasons to do that kind of stuff. For example, the official Den account itself has gotten caught up in that system because of like account sharing and stuff between the team, just so that like different people that actually legitimately need to use it can use it. It showed up, in that list. So there are legitimate reasons if you happen to live together and there's one computer in the house,
and when
you can create a pattern.
Right.
Yeah.
And when it catches
civil
them,
resistance is often prone to false positives when you're checking for it.
Yeah, and when that happens, it slices them up. So if, let's say, someone had 5 fake accounts and they would just log into them from their box, and it detects that, and it essentially doesn't, how do I say, in that case, it doesn't affect their content because it's not their content. It's when they're voting, but that it slices their votes up in that case 1/5. So if my consensus is 1/5 of value because I'm actually running 5 bots. So anyway, that's one thing. That's just one.
Right. So that's exactly the end result is that it wasn't spam. So there wasn't really an issue there. For the most part, if you look and see, a lot of these are actually placed into different layers where it has more of a relationship to that layer. So there was at least some effort to post it in the appropriate area. Rewards wise, and this was the big question: are these people getting a disproportionate amount of matter for doing this? And the answer, I think, and I can look into this some more if we need to, but the answer is no, not really. They're not getting paid out as much as you might think they are, because of all the things that, like Joe said, and how Den works is that if you match certain behavior patterns, like swarming, vote brigading, things like that, your effective energy weight is attenuated. So you might put a bunch of energy on that, but at the end of the day, after it goes through the whole payout routine, that energy from people that are doing that counts for less per energy. You get attenuated, and the more heavily you're matched against those behavior patterns, and that, in other words, the more times that you hit in different ways, so that you're more and more sure that, nope, okay, that's probably what's going on, the more it's attenuated. So if you get a botnet coming in and they're all matching and they're heavily doing that, then it gets attenuated way down to where, they still exist and can operate, but their vote doesn't count for as much because of that behavior, if that makes sense. So the payouts, they did earn matter on them. I honestly think they should have, because I went through and looked at, for example, Unicorn has put some legitimately useful stuff. Like in the cryptocurrency layer, there was a post about like this week in crypto, what are some of the news highlights. Could have linked to references, but it was there. It was a good short read for me to catch up on stuff. Cool. There was some pretty like generic posts about why spinach is good for you over in the nutrition layer, which I read and thought was funny because it recommended using a bunch of asparagus. And I was like, I don't know if that'll help, but it will make your pee smell funny. So, I mean, there was stuff that maybe wasn't original content or maybe wasn't like earth shattering, amazing content, but it was appropriate content for the layer. And to be frank, there wasn't really anything better in the layer. Like that was the content that we have. So the content, especially if there's not a lot of competing content, the content that we do have, even if you think it's low quality, it's there where the other stuff isn't. And so it's going to get paid out.
And if everybody in the layer is voting on just that content, because that's all there is, then it might trigger the brigading pattern, and then everybody's brigading the only post in the layer if everybody thinks
that is very true. So
the other thing I was going to ask you about, though, it's also true, right, that the first person to register their votes, to put their energy into upping or downing a post, right, they're going to be the ones who actually get rewarded the most.
Yeah, for the evaluators, the earlier you evaluate does go into account. Now, it's not like it used to be. I think it's within the first hour now, right? And then
it is hour blocks. The original formula was an ordered series. So the first, it would be higher value in the second, third, fourth, but we ended up doing it with hour blocks for scalability, because when you're going through all the posts, the queries are much simpler that way. We also something big to note that's core to this, especially now, is that you see the amount of energy. There's 40 on that first one, I think 44,000 energy. You don't know how much of that's up or down. And the interesting thing, and the reason you don't know that, is because when we ran originally, when you first rolled out Den, you could see if it was up or down, and people, for one thing, would get bent out of shape because people would vote stuff down, but more so, it allowed people to know which way to brigade. But the funny thing is that essentially with the prediction market, the whole point is that you can look at this content and you can say, oh, that's really good, right? So it's like, because you think it's very appropriate to vote it up. And you vote it up based upon how much energy you have, how much energy you have left for the day, so on, so on. But if you see something that you say, wait, this is really low low value post, right? There's not a lot of great content here, and yet it has 44,000 energy. It very well might be 44,000 up, where it's not right. It's an opportunity for you to vote it down heavily. So maybe these got 10,000 votes by brigading or something, but then 2 or 3 other people said, put 5 or 10,000 negative energy to bet on it, that this is not going to be by consensus good content for this layer. So you never know, and that's some of the beauty of it, because essentially that the way that the evaluators are rewarded based upon the percentages given for eval are entirely weighted. It's a weighted set based upon how much energy is on each of those posts and the consensus. So if you were very correct and you had a ton of energy and put it in extremely early, then you're going to have the biggest payoff, right? So ideally, if you ended up with a post that within the next 24 hours would go to 100% positive consensus, and you were the first one, or essentially in reality, put it in the first hour of vote, and you put in 10,000 energy or 40,000 energy, you're going to get a big payout, because that thing took off like crazy, and the consensus was that it was great.
Right, but if you're also following the brigade, right, then Operation Energy Spam isn't going to do you any good. Even a little targeted the party, and if you're right on the spot, then you're going to get picked up by the system. So there's a disincentive, no matter how you shake a stick at it.
And the great thing is,
vote with the herd.
That is also what ends up calculating the results for the content itself. So whether it's a post or a reply, something that gets high energy has a high potential to either reward greatly or penalize greatly that content for matter mining. And so, it's great because if you get a 51% positive consensus, you're talking, what is it? I think it's a 0.5%, like 0.5% times whatever the energy is. I mean, it's very, very low, right? So even if it's in the middle where it's, we aren't sure, so you're fighting against a grading group, it doesn't take much to basically knock it down if it's really not legit.
So that's something else that I wanted to say too, is when I was looking at the votes just to see, what's going on and if there's anything that I could manually inspect, I did notice that not a bunch of people voted it down, which I would expect if it was suspicious overall, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't see, like, these were positive consensus. These were, some of them, a lot of them had a quorum. And what it looks like to me is people that either know each other and they're friends and they're voting on each other's content, which could be normal human behavior, or some of them might live in the same house. Some of them might be a second account. The suspicious part of that would be having a second account and trying to manipulate it. And that was getting caught by the system. And so it was attenuating the energy. Now they still got paid out, but they got paid out based on based on
when that happens, theoretically it should be the same as if they were a single account. You putting in the consensus ends up being a pretty organic eval. So
now one more thing to think about is, even in the screenshots here, I don't think they're bots, but let's pretend that they're AI, that they're a bot. We've had this discussion before, is where's the threshold between, like, do we want to have bots or not? Mm-hmm. Well, this could actually be representative of what you would expect a bot to do on the good end, because actually you've got, an African Renaissance post in history. You've got an island in Greece and the amazing views layer. You've got Sailor MicroStrategy story and the cryptocurrency layer, Serbia and the travel explorer layer. They're actually sorted into the categories they're supposed to go in, and it is not trying to get people to buy Viagra. It isn't like obvious spam. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's actually, if it were bots, even if it were bots, they're generating content and placing it properly within Den. And so what I didn't see was many people downvoting it, and what I didn't see is anybody blocking them. And this is where let's say
you're AI, right? It's awesome.
Let's say your opinion is that these people are somehow not wanted, or their behavior is not wanted in your opinion. Well, you should just block them, because then you don't have to see them anymore. Because that is the only way that, if there legitimately is a bad actor, the network and the community has to take action against it. It isn't going to be a centralized thing that solves that. It's going to be enough people blocking them to where they are then banned from that layer, and they got to go somewhere else.
And I've said that before too, and I'd be open to ideas that increase the how do I say this? Maybe decrease the psychological resistance to vote something down or to block someone. A lot of people don't do it because they feel bad about it. It's like, I even will just skip stuff that I probably should vote down. There's a definite opportunity to earn matter by voting stuff down that is not content. So, but a lot of people won't. Even when we talked about it, it's like, no, I don't want to vote people down. So
what I like about the block system is that you can only block so many people.
Yes.
Right. You can't do that thing that a lot of people do where it's like, I'm going to block everybody I disagree with. You have to be thoughtful about which people you block. So the reason I think that's important is because, like, if you do start blocking people that you don't want to see, you're going to end up coming up onto a limit of how many people you can block. And you have to unblock somebody before you can block somebody else. Yeah. So it makes you start focusing in on what you really don't want to see and what you really care about. And so you're like, all right, this person, they weren't really annoying me. I just thought they were spam, but they're not really. Let me unblock them and block this obviously, trolling person. So use it. Block them if you don't want to see them. My opinion is yes, there does seem to be people voting on their friends' posts with a lot of energy. That also doesn't necessarily mean it's malicious, because again, yeah, it's a lot of it is copy pasta. A lot of it is not original. A lot of it is AI. Like if you scroll down, Darox has gone through and put some of the text into a detector to see if it's been AI generated or not, and it's come back as yep, seems to be. And
wow,
that's just where we are today.
Yep. But anyway,
Right.
we've said if if you look at it, you step back. And by the way, Den has not had very much real spam where somebody trying to come in, like you said, with Viagra or something else, right?
Yeah, small
Not very
amount.
much of that.
Every now and then you see it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And if it drops down really quick because everybody's like, they either block it or they vote it down or whatever.
Right.
Much the same way, if a bot, if you programmed an AI to produce, let's say really good historical content, maybe historical event of the day or something, it was just really good, I'd be voting it up. I wouldn't care that it was AI. It'd be good info, right? Stuff like that is valid. And it's like, okay, if you're doing the things and actually meeting the goal of producing good content for that layer, sure. I don't care if it's a bot. I don't care if it's I don't care if it's whatever. Anyway, it's an interesting thing.
Those AI detectors too, I got a bone to pick with those guys. The process by which they do that oftentimes picks on patterns where AI sounds too perfect to be a human being. And I've always written in big words with complex sentences, and I know where to put commas and periods. And I'm sure I've been discriminated against as a bot because I don't have enough typos and I don't mangle the language more aggressively.
Yeah.
So
probably picks up a lot of OCD people as bots.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's no way you have that much attention to detail.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, so Darox specifically has put a lot of effort into some really thorough and good posts.
Yeah.
So I can see that it might be disheartening to see huge, 30, 40,000 energy posts on some stuff that's sort of like not really as much effort. But that, from what I saw, that is not being fully applied in a way that it would be if it was a more organically received amount of energy. If that had been
killer content on this review of it too, like this is really above and beyond effort. Super cool.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
A ton of the stuff he's been putting out. It's like I always make sure I try to put as much energy as I can into Darox posts because he puts a lot of effort into some of those.
Something I hadn't thought of that I can look into some more whenever I go back at it. I would be interested to see how the matter reward on those posts compares to the matter rewards that Darox sees on his posts. Now there is the matter of quantity over quality as well. One person obviously is going for quantity over quality, while Darox is obviously going for quality, as you can see in the quality of his posts. So I don't know. Do they even out? Do they, you know what I mean? Is it about the same? Is it per post Darox makes more, but maybe they make more because of how many they put? I don't know. That's something I might look at. And
I would say long-term view too. Somebody creating the kind of content that Darox is creating, definitely a candidate for a personal brand focused entertainment and content layer where he's not one person on a topic where like his commentary is the topic, and you won't get that from generic posts. He's building long-term sort of personal equity and being a good content creator, and I think that's really the magic behind putting a lot of energy into what you post. Yeah, it might be
and that's where
to generate listicles with a bot, and people may rate it up a lot, but
that's the kind of person. That's the kind of person who needs their own. Maybe not their own layer, maybe their own layer, but the concept of personal lot where you can actually have tokens. You can invest in someone as a writer, invest in someone as a creator, as a content creator, by buying personal lot from them. Instead of the lot being necessarily like a community, it's actually just one person, and you're investing in them so that they can continue to do good stuff.
Right. It's like you get a lot of value out of this that you just, maybe a chuckle here and there from somebody's clever query to GPT is fun, but this is immense value. And
it's researched, it's well thought out, it's good points. So in a nutshell, yes, there was some group voting. Yes, the system did catch it, and yes, they earned matter, but no, it wasn't as much matter as they would have earned if it was organic votes, meaning not group voting kind of thing. So sorry it took so long to get at that, but that's where it is. All right. So the other big thing was payouts aren't working right now. That'll come back online when it comes back online, when it's ready. There's a couple of components that are not quite working yet since last week's latest change. One of those is the payouts. One of those is, I think, tips may not be working. And from what we've seen with the WBRT GI, they're not resolving on their own. So those are three things that aren't working yet. Payouts are already designed from the beginning, though, to where if there is an issue and they stop running daily, that when they do run again, they go back and they catch up. So it'll go through each period. Each period is a day. So it'll go through each day and it'll do payouts in order, just like it normally would have, to catch up. So you'll see that catch up when it comes back on.
So it being broken doesn't mean you don't get it. It just means you're going to get blasted with a bunch all at once.
Yeah, and this is true of like kind of the way Dragon Chain design stuff anyway, is that if you have certain parts that fall over, it just keeps chugging along, and then when it comes back, it catches up or it comes back online, and it's
kind of a Kafka vibe to it.
Yeah,
to my mind.
Yeah,
Den works that way. Eternal works that way. Basically, the way the way the L1s are set up.
One of the use cases was cruise ships that lost connectivity, even, right?
Oh, yeah. Needs to be able to keep working. Yeah. Not even just cruise ships, man. Fucking warships, bro.
Yes.
We've literally we were in a particular region, a particular place on planet Earth where the communication satellite happened to be in the way of the main mast, and our antenna couldn't see through the mast of the ship, but we had to be oriented that way because of what we were doing. And so what we did was we turned around and drove backwards for a while so that we could keep comms up, but still go the direction we needed to go.
How long does it actually take to turn around well, I don't know what kind of ship it was.
It was a destroyer. It was, 500-foot ship with 300 people on it.
How long does it actually take to turn around? Because that's the thing. It's like, it's
pretty quick. It's pretty quick.
What kind of ship is it that is supposed
to
take
so the whole turning around a big ship metaphor that people like to use in cliche 90s business meetings is completely bunked then. You can turn
no. So two different things. To turn it around, it'll take you a few minutes, but it turns around like you can't it's not a hot rod. You can't like scoot the tires out and flip it around. You can't pull the e-brake and that kind of thing.
Right, yeah, it's not running on a hydrofoil. It doesn't have rocket.
Yeah, right, that kind of thing. But it does take a while. That's very true. When you turn the helm, there is a delay from when you turn the helm to when you feel any shift at all, and from when you feel the shift to where it actually starts turning. There's a huge delay, but it isn't like it takes hours. It takes some minutes. Kind of thing.
Okay. Well, still kind of a bogus metaphor. Check. I'm glad that one turned out to be fake.
It's just not fake. It's just not as extreme as you might imagine. But there's a definite delay from turning the helm and the ship actually turning.
I can't remember the details of it. I need to look it up. I think.
But yeah, it's fake.
Jones. There was some naval battle that he somehow they like shot something to shore, and it made the whole vessel turn around really fast.
Oh, that was probably a battleship.
I can't remember, but it was Revolutionary War, I do believe.
Revolutionary War.
So
Then yeah. So in that case, today I
Look
was
at
on
Jack-
I was
look
on
at
a
Jack
modern
Anchor, right?
I was on a modern destroyer with gas turbine engines, and it was really fancy. Now, a long time ago, you didn't have all that. And so, yeah, it took forever to turn around, right? Especially if it was a ship like had sails, or something like that. But yeah, if you look at even battleships in World War II, the 16-inch guns, if they all fired from one end, the whole ship would scoot over. You'd see the drag in the water. And yeah, if you drop the anchor while you're turning, it's going to do what you expect, like a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
And I imagine that even firing the little puny 5-inch gun that we had on the front of ours off to one side would have some effect. But really, they turn around fine now. Like today, we're talking about ships on the DENDAO call, but yeah, it's fine. They turn around. The ships turn around. They perform extremely well. It's scary sometimes because when you turn left, it leans right. So it feels like you're going to fall over. The ships don't know to lean into the turn. So you're walking on the walls a little bit sometimes, but yeah. Back on subject. Did you guys record yet, by the way?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I had it.
Since we just went off on that, I'm like, this is the kind of thing that Greg's show is going to be about.
Yes, probably so. I think we have a location now, and I think we have a time, so hopefully it'll be next week.
Cool.
Yep. And for what it's worth, we would literally stop and chase down the specific story. Like we could figure out.
We just
like and then I will probably proceed then to bring out the Pirates of the Caribbean maneuver where they pulled off the dropping one of the front anchors.
The drop anchor thing, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Dropping anchor to make it turn around quickly, and they're under sail power. Yeah, those ships take for fucking ever to turn around because you got a sailboat.
Okay,
but we've got modern technology, and the propellers actually change pitch themselves. Each propeller can, like, you can do a bunch of fancy stuff.
So it's
today.
so it's like the Tesla of boats.
But I did say we were getting back to the point. So
yes, that was also an intentional Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, one of these days we'll get together and just tell sea stories and stuff. It would be fun. We've been talking about decentralization of DEN. So it's a hybrid system. There are some decentralized parts and some centralized parts. There are some public parts and there are some private parts. And that is all intentional. But there could be more decentralization that wasn't available when DEN launched. Giant kites could pull cargo ships across the ocean. Sure. So sailboats. That's hilarious, Joe. I love that that's a solution, which is like, use a sailboat. It's a sailboat at that point. Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess that makes the anachronism less problematic, right? Because a 90s shitty business meeting is also kind of like an outdated
concept.
Yeah, it's like a caravel of a business.
So they're right. I love that we keep going back to talking about boats. That's what we really want to do here.
Jesus.
They're right in that the old boats worked that way. So when you hear somebody say it, don't have an aneurysm. Just realize they're talking about old boats, old ships. Big ship to steer.
Cool.
Decentralization, though. So there's stuff out there today that wasn't out there a couple of years ago. And we could use some of that stuff to decentralize some of the centralized parts. One of those would be, for example, so DEN has a bunch of things that are separately running that all hook together. We've talked before about how the front end is separate from the back end. Anybody could make a website or a phone app or something that communicated to the same back end that the website Den.Social communicates with. And so that's something that we're looking at as far as like how the conversation's been going so far in the last couple of weeks. Something that we could leverage are some new decentralized compute networks that are specifically trying to offer the same thing that Amazon or Google Cloud offers, where you can spin up a virtual machine that has this many cores and this much RAM, and you can deploy a system onto it. You can put a website on it. You can build your app on it. that kind of thing. And those would be decentralized across whatever technique that network uses to decentralize it. We've talked about Flux, which I'm a big fan of. They have an arguably more decentralized approach than the other one that I briefly mentioned, which is Kudos. But Kudos has an arguably more secure approach. And so one of the things that we have to do if we're going to go in that direction is decide what DEN would require for us to trust our private data being in the hands of someone we don't know and will never meet. So we're talking about
private data. You're talking DEN data, which might not be that private. Some of it will be. Claimed addresses are probably the most important thing.
So claimed addresses and what accounts they belong to, people's email address that they signed up for, how much matter they get, stuff like that. Potentially also just looking out for malicious attacks, people that want to explode the system. Are the people running these decentralized nodes able to see what's in the Docker container that they're running? Is it an encrypted environment? That kind of thing.
And how do they? Because I think at least on Flux it's 3 separate for, I don't know if it's for failover or for.
I thought it was 5, but it's 3 to 5. Yeah, yes, it's 3 to 5 replicated, synchronized Docker containers running in different geographic regions. As far as I know, they do not do shortest route hosting. It's all just using one of them until it fails and then fails.
And
I could have that wrong though.
Sticky, say if one, if I were a miner and I was running one and I happened to end up having DEN running on mine, I don't know, do I know that it's DEN? And then also, does it stay running on mine and indefinitely until I shut it off, and then it realizes, we need to find that third one somewhere else?
Those are 2 questions I don't know the answer to. I do want to know, do you know DEN is running on yours? Do you know you have the DEN node? Because I don't want you to. I don't I want it to be, no, you're running compute for whoever.
Having that replication might, depending upon if I get a request, it might not be a security against an attack, because I don't know, I would kind of doubt that I would be able to see some of that, because it would be encrypted, but I don't know at what level is it encapsulated. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm more concerned with so I'm assuming this, but we need to get on a call with these guys and ask them how it works, because DEN is enough of an animal that we're going to have potentially issues with synchronization, so that if one goes down, is it immediately available with the other one? Does there need to be a DNS entry update so that there's a new IP? That kind of thing. Does all that stuff happen automatically? That kind of stuff.
Right.
I know that the nodes can run on anyone's home internet connection, and it automatically handles updating your IP address with dynamic IP address and stuff. But I don't know the engineering details about how handoff works. So encrypted environments, handoff is the second one. How does handoff work if somebody's machine goes down? Because, we've got DEN has a blockchain. It's got its own chain that it needs to be, if it's going to be handing off, do we need to do anything to make sure that it's still synchronized when it hands off? That kind of thing.
That'd be like transaction ordering. If you have anything like that needs to, something needs to come in in a particular place. How do you detect that when with Rivet, we've dealt with a ton of weird little stuff like this throughout the process of building what we built. And there's there are definitely considerations on that front. And then, of course, different hardware equals different default behaviors, even with the same default settings in some cases, right? So
and so then the cost is the other thing. How much does it cost? And how much, not only does it cost to host, but how much does it cost DEN to implement the changes? This part, the last part of IAM's comment here is very to the point and very important, where we need to quantify what's it going to cost to spin up a test environment to make sure it works. What's it going to cost to do any modifications that needs to happen for that to work? What's it going to cost to operate just a monthly operating budget for maintenance, for the hosting included? What does that cost? And to put down literally like, here's how much it costs to do this, and then we'll know how much money we need to raise from the community. If everybody wants to do this, and I think we do, then we need to know how much that's going to cost and how much, like, basically everyone's on the hook for when it comes to like, here's how much money that needs to be used to fund it.
And one other thing on the outside is portability. If Flux went a different route and said, "Oh, we're not going to do this anymore," or something else, could we port it to a different similar network? Right.
And you may want to have like redundant backup with another service or something. I mean, like, for example, if it were something that would be easy enough for a team like ours to support, having somebody available to have standby capacity is probably good until you're confident with.
I would think that we would in parallel run the decentralized version with failover to the existing version, run them both at the same time. So that would go into costs, the cost of both infrastructures, right? Because this is very experimental. It's very new, especially on a production machine like this, and especially with a hybrid system like this.
Well, and I think probably would be wise to do to start off with a best guess overestimate on how much it's going to cost, and then refine that by monitoring to make sure that that in real world usage you're not getting an entirely different story in terms of costs compared to what your test cases were.
Now, one thing we can do, I think, that is a baby step, but a very meaningful baby step in the direction, in addition to exactly what IAM points out, which is deciding how much it's going to cost to do this. We could launch just the front end on that. We could launch just the website, and then that could interface with the existing infrastructure. We could even run flux.den.social or kudos.den.social as a test environment that is hot, right? That it's on the production system, but it's just the front end. So if it fails, you still go to Den.Social like normal and it works still, that kind of thing.
Yep. And by the way, there might even be some opportunity to, we've talked about having a data, a bounty and the ability to inspect the blockchain itself and everything else. That some of that might just make sense to open up at this point when we, if we said, okay, we're going to put some portion of it on here, but it's going to expose this data that isn't currently exposed, then we can work that in. So.
Yep. And then I'm assuming open source plays a role in all of this as well, right? Because ultimately that's going to be your best your best defense against like new attack surfaces emerging that people didn't see coming, and it's also going to be a really great way to build a community of people who are going to be interested in the long-term big picture of this, which is probably ultimately going to result in, if all comes to pass as it ought, the people who are running the network are going to be the ones reaping the rewards that it generates.
Yep. I think also, again, the front end being the least dangerous part of the whole system could be the first thing that we open source. In addition to, after we do the API documentation, the front end can be what we really play with, because running that on Flux or running that on Kudos, I like Kudos as an option because they have their hardware. It's less accessible to the common person as far as like to run a node on their network to participate. But that's because they require either an Intel Xeon or an AMD EPYC CPU, because those are the only ones that offer hardware encrypted virtual environments, meaning the thing I was concerned about, where you don't want whoever's running that machine to be able to inspect your machine. to be able to manipulate it, to be able to know what's in it, that kind of thing. And it's a way to ensure that your VM really is a private VM and only you who has the keys to connect to it can do anything with it, that kind of thing.
Right.
But whichever one, I wanted to bring up Kudos again because they actually have a, let me just go down here. They have a grant program where they've just recently launched their mainnet. They've got decent documentation on how to run a node, but also as a developer, how to build on their how to deploy onto their system. It's built with apparently a combination of Rust and Golang, from what I read. But then specifically, they have a foundation with a grant program that they are looking for people to build stuff on their network, startups, developers, anybody who wants to deploy on their system. Obviously, they need to bootstrap people using it. So DENDAO could apply for a grant. I would imagine that grant, it comes in the form of their tokens, which you need to use to pay for your hosting. Yeah. But if we can get granted even a way to pay for hosting,
right?
To where it doesn't cost the host on it, that'd be
you would think it would be
it's like AWS credits, basically.
Yeah, and you would think it would be because Den is it's not a small system. I mean, it would be
it's a complex, real example of what you can, like, it's the whole point of Den is to be not to be complex, but to show you can do complex things. With this.
Maybe that's, and we can talk to everybody, but maybe that is and I don't know if the others have anything similar, right? But any place that exists, it would probably make sense.
They're specifically looking for Web3. This is their points of interest that they would consider giving grants to. Gaming, Web3, that kind of stuff. So if you're building something like that, we could fall into one of those categories. Yep. And we don't know how much it costs.
And we have NFTs, we have community development. At least I don't know what they mean by community development, but
I don't either.
We could fit into a few of those. So
neat. Do we know what? Just out of curiosity, have you guys looked into like what kind of? Is it an EVM based thing or is it some other?
No, it is Cosmos. I want to say.
Oh, cool! Perfect. Beautiful.
Let's see here. It is. Their testnet, their mainnet is on Kudos. No, that's them. Kudos is on. Oh, you know what it is? Where was I saw it in here? Prereqs, hardware, understanding, validating, somewhere in here. Yeah, Cosmos. Tendermint Cosmos, right here. Wow.
Yeah, the Tendermint models are really pretty good one. So that's cool.
And Flux is their own thing.
Neat.
Flux is their own thing. Flux is. Do you remember Zelcoin or Zel?
Barely, yeah.
Anyway, it's Zelcore is their wallet, and it's the Zel people that do Flux, from what I understand. Maybe I got that wrong, but that's what I think. So 2 very good options. We need to know how much they cost, and we would need to know how much it costs for us to put in the resources to make it happen. And I imagine the best approach that I can think of anyway would be an incremental approach where we deploy either just a front end, an additional front end that connects with same API to the back end, or an entire, maybe the second phase after that would be an entire test net or test environment for Den, where we have a brand new copy of Den with no users on it, where people would have to literally sign up for the dev environment, for the test environment. And none of the points you get on there are exportable. It doesn't give you any matter. It gives you test matter or something. But just to demonstrate that it actually works.
When we're thinking about it too, I don't want to introduce any more complexity we need, but in the case where, let's say, and maybe because it's decentralized, it wouldn't matter as much, but theoretically, the layers could run themselves. I don't know. That is, if the layer, I don't know. I just wanted to
Dude,
bring
that
that up.
idea sounds powerful when you say it enough, in enough ways that I'm thinking that might be something you should hang on to and explore.
Yeah. Well,
because
we've talked
that
about it in
sounds
the
cool.
past. Like, say, if you had a layer that we couldn't run, but or for whatever reason you didn't want to risk us having the U.S. government hand over your
Right.
users' info to some other government dissidents or something,
That'd be
that
like the layer protocol,
you
basically.
could, yeah, you could run your own somewhere.
Den compatible layer.
So
and
architecturally, it's already open to doing that. And I probably wouldn't want to do it with every single layer, but the fact that you could do that means it could even be more, I don't know, more flexible anyway. So.
Well, one day you flip a switch, right? And when somebody comes and says, hey, Dragon Chain the company, what the hell is this? You go, we can't stop it. Right. And that's
that would sound similar to, I would love to be able to run like a layer, because you know how I love to self-host everything, in my own office. I would love to be able to run a layer from my office, and DIN's main system just connects to whatever that endpoint is, that kind of thing. Like one of the other networks that I like a lot that is so I use Session as a private messenger, and on that you have one app, one interface, one desktop app that you connect to Session with, and you can do all your DMing and phone calls and stuff through that. But you could also have what's called so it's a privacy thing, but you can have open group servers too. And an open group server is something that you run separately on your own hardware. And anybody who runs an open chat, so it's like running a chat server. You connect to it though through the same front end. And so to the user, to the person using the app, it's transparent. Although even, each one of the this would be an analogy of a layer. Each open group server would be hosted on somebody else in somebody else's basement or something like that.
Right. And you could have different sort of available algorithmic filtering for different groups if you wanted to. Even like if somebody wanted to have a listing of layers, they could list only certain types of layers, leaving the NSFW stuff elsewhere.
Is that have their own tags and their own categories and stuff. Yeah. Is that the same thing as federation?
That is a form of what you would call federation. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I would say that it's it's all kind of federated in a way. It's sort of federation is sort of like I think it's on the spectrum of decentralization that makes it really hard to discern the difference between federation and decentralization in many cases, because I would say it is decentralization. If it's just people plus orgs, then it's federated, and if it's just people, and it's decentralized. I
would say it probably is decentralization. It's just not incentivized decentralization.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Other than the natural incentives decentralization provides,
or blockchain secured decentralization.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Cool. So how do we come up with these numbers? Let's just talk about this a little bit more. Do we need a working group on this? Do we need to talk about it in the DIN layer? Like how do we do this?
We need to get the specs on the actual existing system, and kind of maybe some bounds on, maybe we have this much RAM, but we don't actually need that much RAM or whatever else, right? I say that. I mean, I know that I've gotten initial stuff just verbally, but we need to get those down and say, okay, here's kind of what we're looking at. When I say Flux had a calculator, I used it, and it looked like it was really cheap, but it was really funny because it didn't tell me if the output was hourly, daily, monthly. It just said it's $3.
A one-time fee. You'll never pay anything else.
I don't know how much it actually would cost to run.
You guys should start off with some swags too. That'd be my recommendation. Like, let's get some scientific wild ass guesses on the numbers that we can't quite fill in yet, and just make sure that they've got an asterisk next to them. That way,
but that's what I'm saying. We know if we know the amount we're running, we have really no way to determine what they're charging for. So I'm like, it's it's kind of wild. I don't know. And then beyond that, that's just one more question, Dave. It might be super interesting to know what are the chances that can you control what you are running? What if you allowed 10 of the denizens to run a node in one of these environments, so we would at least know it's all in the family? I don't know if that's something we'd want or not, but something like that might be pretty interesting.
I didn't think about this until just now, but if you did the federation, or if you did allow layers to run separately in different like containers in different locations, you could then apply that to, we talked about dead layers and stuff.
Yeah.
You could
That's
make
how we would go away.
you could make it to where the layer funds itself to run.
Yep.
Kind of thing. And if it doesn't pay its own bill, then it waits around until someone pays the bill to come back again.
You could
just
have
as a brainstorm.
you have an entire emergent marketplace in layer hosts out there to start to emerge, right?
Right. And so either way, if we figure out that cost, then we can go and we can talk to them, verify various questions, see if they're interested in helping us out, working with us either by helping us with a grant or helping us with just technical support in a couple of cases to things that they would have seen that we might not have in doing this. And it could be a super interesting thing to do. I would love it. It would be amazing. So
love it, guys. This is fantastic. Now we just have to figure out which part of it we're going to steal the Twitter brand marks for.
Yes. At least testnet.
Right. It's Twitter Den.
Yes, I love it.
I was just trying to go through their they have the set up a node thing here. There we go. Instances. All right, here's the pricing you're looking at. This is monthly.
Okay.
Let me share this screen real quick.
So when I did really rough estimates, I hadn't gotten everything in from the devs yet on all of the points. But I came up with less than $5, which I was like, is it really that cheap? With mining, maybe, like you'd said, they are kind of subsidizing it with mining right now. So
yeah, it used to be free when they were just trying to get it all going.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put a bunch of gibberish in to get to this point.
Put in 4 cores.
Yeah, so 4 cores. And let me just.
I can't remember how much RAM he said.
Payment length. So you can choose your monthly. You can pay
annually. Might know how much RAM. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if you want to do it right here or not, but.
How many cores? Wait, what is it? How many instances? So we'll do 3 instances. Yeah. This is where it answers your question. You choose how many instances you want all running at the same time. So that's your reliability. Yep. Max 100. That's awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Bulletproof.
That's either a really good sign or a really bad sign.
How many?
He said where you.
They do have a lot of nodes. They got a lot of
4 core.
How many cores?
I do believe he said 4.
4.
RAM, I can't remember. I know storage was the 700 gig sound. Let me look. I'll look. I know he sent me stuff.
I don't know how much we actually use. I'm going to put 128 gigabytes in here.
Yeah.
How much storage would you like? I would like all of it. So this is where we would have to. So this is where the limitation of their nodes comes in, because per instance is where the limitation. So their largest node only has 840 gigabytes. So they can't do more than 840 gigabytes. So we could do something like use a different storage layer, a different data store, like storage, like Filecoin, like something like that, to hold videos, to hold photos, images, stuff like that. And then the Flux or the Kudos node, although Kudos would have more storage available, could have the immediate, like almost like a cache, something like that. So I'm going to max out the storage. And that estimation is $40 a month.
It's not bad. That's pretty good. Jeez.
Yeah, even if you double that estimate for safety, you're still in a pretty comfortable zone, really.
Yeah. $40 a month. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good. Jeez.
Per component per month. Is this whole thing a component? I think so. So I think it's $50 a month. The question then comes here: is less than a terabyte going to work for us? I don't know. If that, I don't think so.
It was less than a terabyte right now. I'm almost certain.
Okay.
I'm almost certain it's less than a terabyte right now.
Okay.
Seems like it was 700.
You guys know how fast data is likely to accumulate in a decentralized variant?
That's my point. That's my point. Is in the event that the thing happens that we want to happen, which is massive adoption, that balloons quickly. Mm-hmm. So it would need to be something that is more flexible, right? More
at the very least,
elastic.
you're going to have to have some kind of offloading cold storage compaction type of system to.
Well, this is where Dragon Chain can come in.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Dragon Chain is built to be able to bolt different components on to solve certain different requirements. Hmm. So what we could do is, and like assuming we have the resources, the funding, the time to do it, we could use a different storage layer. We could even use, if we had to, while we figured out something better, we could even use something like Google or Amazon or Azure Cloud just for image hosting to offload the bulk of what uses up all that space. And then the worst case scenario, if anything ever gets turned off, all that gets turned off is images. And oh darn, you can't put your meme on there, but you can still talk and discuss, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and that also is amenable to, ultimately an IPFS integration or something like that you could go decentralized service integration with content hosting. So that'd be pretty cool. That's it seems like a pretty promising setup, at least out of the gate, and unless the perfect storm happens and everything goes mega viral overnight, right? Then you're not going to run into a situation where you've got to turn massive chunks of it off in order to shore up storage.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I just now read this. This is also different from Kudos. There's a banner at the top. There is a point of centralization right here. Only verified Docker repositories can run on Flux. So we have to whitelist our repository for it to be able to run on their infrastructure.
How do you whitelist it?
You ask them.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think we could probably go through and say, hey.
Yeah, but my whole point is that if we're going through the process to decentralize like this, do we want to choose a solution that has an off switch?
Right. Well, and maybe, or maybe at the very least, do you want to tag this for future progressive decentralization efforts as a thing that you want to solve? Because technically, you could probably start here, and it's better than no decentralization.
Very true.
But you can always.
That's a good point. Getting the infrastructure decentralized is such a feat that it would warrant news articles like check this shit out.
And again, that would be that would call to the question of portability. If we developed it on Flux, could we move it to Kudos? How? I assume it's all just Docker based, but there might be other elements that would be.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know as much about.
To imagine, Kubernetes adaptation.
Yeah,
and all that fun stuff.
I don't know as much about Kudos's, but I know that their branding at least is that it's permissionless to run on there. So you show up and pay the fee, and you can run that kind of thing.
Well, maybe the whitelisting is automatic. Then maybe it's just making sure that you have
it's a pull request.
File. Okay, there you go.
It's a pull request. So then a pull request could remove you from the whitelist too. That kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. I don't like
that, yeah. So yeah, perfect world. You're running on one.
It's probably better than Amazon though. So.
You've got multiple options, which we already have. They are competing with each other, and you're running on both or several of them, and there's failover between them. If one goes down, it goes to the other. But to get started, Greg, you're right. If it ain't perfect, it's something.
Yep. And the only way it ever happens is if I mean, this is the classic, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. So.
Well, the great thing is we're already all deployed entirely on, Docker, and, we back to we're already looking at changing the way that we're deployed in a cluster to simplify stuff. So this would effectively be maybe we build to something like this while we're doing that, right?
Yeah, I would like to get a dev environment going, and for $40 a month, I would probably just fund it myself to run a dev environment over there. Not fund the migration, not fund the dev resources, but hosting itself. I would pay for that, because even if it's a blank copy of Den with nobody on it, we can start signing up to it and see how it feels. Is it responsive? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. So let me see. I don't think I missed anything, but let me check. I did hit the payouts thing again. Sorry they're not working. It'll catch up when it's ready. And also sorry if there's been a delay on support issues. Our superstar is on vacation right now. Well deserved. And so we have not been up on top of support emails or posts in the layer as much as we could have been. Yep. And then the upvote brigading we covered in detail. So that's it. That's it for the agenda today. It's a long meeting, but a lot of good stuff discussed. We got a lot.
Yep.
We got a lot sort of answered finally with the brigading, and some details worked out on how we can quantify costs for migrating to decentralization. Front end first, unless somebody has a better idea. Full dev environment second, unless somebody has a better idea. And if all that works, man, that'd be great, right? Running on decentralized compute infrastructure. That'd be awesome. That'd be bragging rights.
Yep.
All right. Let's get out of here and go do other things. Anybody have anything else they want to mention?
Nope.
Cool. Well, as usual, I want to show off this song that Y'all Weird made. It's called Enter the Dragon. Check this out.
Hell yeah.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best.
Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. A tactical approach is palpable if this animal is fallible, but that conclusion is laughable. So with for all detachable from the mandible, you see it now.